Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Life. My name is Linda Bown. I'm going to be your host this morning. I have Representative Colleen Garry, my very favorite rep.
Thank you.
And has been my rep for many years now.
30.
And glad to see she did have some health issues, and she's completely recovered, and she looks marvelous and is
Thank you.
back on all cylinders. Camera.
Yeah,
So
it's hard not to look at each other.
I'm trying to be very good about this.
Yeah.
So, are you back to work?
I am back to work. It's still, it's strange. I had laparoscopic surgery, and it still can make you very tired. The surgeon said that was normal. So I did make it back for budget week. I made it back one day before that. Actually, I didn't miss any roll calls while I was gone. It was great. But after that one day of session, I was exhausted, so I had to take some more time. But so I missed a few hearings on bills, but but I made it back in time for the budget, and we got the budget done last week.
Okay.
Over, I think it was 1,600 amendments, and we ended up only adding, I think it was 60 million to the budget, or maybe 80 million to a $61 billion budget.
Whoa.
So I was able to get 25,000 for the Drake Food Pantry. I think the food pantries are going to be having a tough time. So we got that. I was able to get 25,000 for the Tewksbury Police for marine patrols on Lake Muscatbeck.
Oh, that's good.
There's been a history of, the issues with the jet skis and all of that. So I'm hoping that that money will go to good use. That we have to make sure we got police officers willing to go out on the boat. They can't go out unless they have 2 officers to go. So, but we're going to try to entice some Drake officers to go out as well. The environmental police, there's only so many of them, and they have to cover everywhere in the state. So they have made efforts to be up there, but it's still, it only takes one person to be crazy and cause dangerous situations. So we got the 25,000 for that, and then one of the most important issues that I've heard of is that Drake, Tewksbury, Billerica, and Chelmsford have a group that works together with mental health counselors, and they assist the officers when there's a mental health issue that they have to go to, or a substance abuse issue, and they follow up with the family and the individual and all that. And according to Tewksbury Chief Sean Woods and Drake Chief Peter Bartlett, this has been a real game changer for them. So with the cuts that could be possible with cuts on the federal level, we have to be really, really careful about where money is, and it has been discussed that maybe there wouldn't be money for these grants. They actually call them jail diversion grants, and I think for our 5 communities, it was something like $430,000 to be able to do that. I filed that amendment myself with the other reps from those communities, and then the total for the state, how much was that? 21.5 million for all of them throughout the state. And Representative Manny Cruz out of Salem had filed that amendment, so I co-sponsored that as well. That one did not pass. The chairman of Ways and Means did give me $100,000 towards our group. I don't know if they call it collaborative or whatever. But it's our understanding that most likely, hopefully, the Senate will end up fully funding it in their budget. They have the ease of knowing a little bit more about what revenues we have. And the revenues for April just came in, and they were higher than expected. But we still don't know what the federal budget is going to bring for all of us. We've been very concerned about that. A quarter of our state budget is federal money. Most of that is federal money for Mass Health. It's usually a 50-50 cut on that, 50% state and 50% federal. I know Laurie Trahan has been very concerned about the federal cuts to that with the proposed budget by the Republicans. With tax cuts and everything else that they're doing, is there going to be enough? Technically, they're not cutting Medicaid under their resolution. The resolution just says, like, the framework for the budget is my understanding. But they're saying there's no way that we can, if we do those other things, that we can fully fund the Medicaid Mass Health in Massachusetts fund. 71% of our nursing home patients are on Mass Health. They're in our communities, in my district, there's about 10,000 people on Mass Health. People tend to think that Mass Health is people who are unemployed, who don't want to work and so forth. The reality is, like I said, there's a huge number that are living in nursing homes on Mass Health. There are people who, are technically unemployed right now and can't afford the COBRA, so they're on Mass Health. And then you've got people who, the frail elders, if we want to keep them at home instead of going into a nursing home, they get PCAs and things like that to go in and take care of them so they're able to stay at home, which is cheaper than having them go into a nursing home, and they, it's fulfilling their wishes not to go to a nursing home. We've got people who are, have a serious illness and who have insurance, but that serious illness is only so much the insurance will pay, so the Mass Health is a safety net for that. It's a huge, huge situation, and my concern is already the facilities, anybody who shows up at a hospital, they get cared for. If they don't have insurance, it goes on Mass Health. We used to have, what do we call it? Uncompensated care pool, that if somebody went to the emergency room and didn't have insurance, then the hospitals would get reimbursed from the uncompensated care pool. They, where we tried to get everybody to get health insurance, and the Mass Health would cover that now. So you've got community hospitals like Lowell General, Circle Health, whatever you want to call it these days, that they've got a large portion of people who are on Mass Health. I think in the city of Lowell, I think each rep is close to 19,000 people on Mass Health. So if all of a sudden there's cuts to Mass Health, there's going to be an effect on the nursing homes. It's going to have an effect on the hospitals. It's going to have an effect on the doctor's offices if they can't get reimbursed. So I'm very concerned about the whole healthcare situation. I actually got a call from a young woman, a friend of my niece's, who has a serious illness, and she almost died once, and it's not a cancer, but it's incurable, and it's got very unusual situations where she could be in a wheelchair one day and not be in a wheelchair another day, and it affects all parts of her system. And she called me yesterday scared, and she's working, but she has Mass Health as a safety net. And she said, what's going to happen? What do I do if they cut Mass Health? And I said, well, just don't worry about it yet, because I don't want it to bring on more issues for her. Stress can cause a lot. But there's a lot that's going to have to be looked at if they do cut Medicaid. And I think if they do cut it, I think there'll be a reverberation back to the Congress to reinstate it, because it's my understanding that a lot of the red states are the lower income. A lot of people are on Medicaid.
What's a red state?
That vote more Republican. So the Republican...
So it's a party war?
I don't know if it's that, or whether it's just the fact that...
It seems to me that that's what's going on down in the State House. It's a party war.
Not the State House, we're talking federal.
The State House, too. I watched the voter ID thing. It's a party war.
Well, the voter ID thing was not a great...
With the taxpayers, our side's got to win. This has got to stop.
Well, honestly, I have a bill and I have been filing it for many years, to have voter ID. I did not vote for the language that was brought forward in the budget, because, one, it's the wrong place to have that kind of debate on an issue. It hasn't even had its hearing before the committee yet. It needs to go that way.
Well, where did the video of Dan Hunt, Representative Dan Hunt, making a fool out of himself come from then?
What did he make a fool of himself for?
He got up to speak against voter ID, and he forgot what he was going to say, and he says, doesn't matter.
He hasn't been well right now. He's been sick. His kids have been sick, and he was just back to work. So he is chair of the Election Laws Committee. He has promised me
Made
that...
a complete fool out of himself.
Well...
He looks pretty good there. Maybe he's got makeup on or something, but he made a complete... I can't pull the audio up, but I couldn't. I said, I can't believe this guy is the chairmanship, and he doesn't know what to say.
Well, I mean,
Terrible.
the reality, and I talked to him after that, and he promised me that there would be a good hearing on it. And I know Dan very well. We actually shared office space until he was moved to that chairmanship. But that, and the other one that...
Why doesn't he want voter ID? What's the matter with it?
There are some that think that it it hurts the people who can't afford to get the ID.
How do they do their banking then, those people?
I don't know. I don't know how they even get a medication.
That's right.
And that's why I support the bill. But we shouldn't be doing policy issues in a budget.
I agree with you.
And that and the detainer one, I actually co-sponsor a bill with Allison Sullivan Almeida, who's a Republican. Her dad was Mike Sullivan, who is Mike Sullivan. He's still alive, thank God. Mike Sullivan was the U.S. attorney after he was a state representative, appointed by, who was he appointed by? I can't remember. But she and I co-sponsor a bill that says if someone has a criminal history, a criminal conviction for violent crimes, then the agencies will work with ICE to do that. And,
Well, ICE was at Lowell yesterday.
yeah. But the reality is that the language that Mark Lombardo was arguing on in that amendment would not require that they work with them, just allow them to work with them. And there's a difference between allowing and requiring.
Well, Colleen, did they ever bring up that, quite bluntly, law enforcement doesn't like to work with one another anyway? Because you get to a scene, and yesteryear when Johnny Cabonazak was a medical examiner, you get to a scene with the little cops, and they go like, state's coming. When are they coming? When they get here. And there was no real, oh boy, the state's coming. No. And if the FBI got involved, it was like ridiculous, and I understand it's the same way today.
I don't know. I've not heard that. I know that we've had the state police in to drake it for, missing people and so forth.
The best thing the state cops did was that state trooper off duty found that little kiddo's remains in the river.
Yep.
That's the best thing the state cops have done in years.
Well, I don't know that I don't think that.
My opinion, not yours.
Yeah, you don't always hear all the good stories. If
never
it
hear
bleeds,
the
it
good
leads.
stories.
There aren't
and
any.
There are good ones.
They ride around with a velvet blue pillow in their cruiser for a nap.
No, there is
Yeah,
a
they
very
do.
good.
I seen it in the car.
Well,
See when they park at the median strip? They park at the median strip because no one can go over there where they can sleep to their hearts.
Well, unfortunately, when they're on the highways, they're always at risk. And I actually sat and chatted with Trooper Tamara Bucci, who was killed when she stopped to help a vehicle on 93, and she was hit and killed. There are numerous police officers who get killed just doing road details or doing, checking on someone on the highways. Or we just had someone, he wasn't killed, but, the car was mangled when he was off on the side of the road. So I do think that there are very good officers out there. I think you only hear about the bad ones, and that unfortunately, I think there's 2,500 state troopers, and I know some personally, and they work very, very hard keeping us safe. So, there are some bad, just like there's some bad people everywhere in every profession. But so anyway, going back to the detainers, there are civil detainers, and that's what they're trying to enforce. They still have the opportunity to get criminal detainers, and they don't. They just go with the civil. In the language that they are a threat to the country. I think we've seen that there's been some situations where it's very broadly used. And anyway, I thought that it should not have been something that was in the budget, that it should have a full hearing so everyone can testify on it. And I do support the cooperation with ICE on people who have a proven criminal history that they should not be in this country.
I don't understand, except that it does fall on party lines, and that's very unfortunate. But I agree with you. I agree with you on the, and it's been one of the things that has annoyed me for 50 years, for God's sakes, that they put issues like a voter ID on the budget.
Yep.
They've always done it. And something that's very important.
Right.
They just tag it on, and I just think it's a win. Voter ID. I mean, you can't do anything without an ID.
Well, it's funny because the people, there are several members who are pushing to get the homeless to have IDs. So if we can push to get the homeless to get IDs, we should be able to make sure that everyone gets an ID. And I honestly believe that would help if we had identification, whether it be welfare or mass health or whatever, that people going for services would have an ID, and we assure that it's the right person getting the services.
I know that there are some very strange IDs because at the pharmacy you see them not when they're doing just to buy cigarettes, to buy alcohol. There are so many things to return. If you have to return something, you have to show an ID, which is, and nobody blinks. Nobody blinks.
And the
over that.
reality is now that I don't know if Tingsboro has it too, but Drake, when I went to vote on Saturday for the town elections, there's now a thing that you put your license on backwards and it reads your bar scan, so it tells them who you are. And so it just, we would be doing everyone a favor to help them get an ID. Granted, you have to have a birth certificate, which is going to might cost you some money. Well, I think that we should be able to reimburse, from the Secretary of State's office. I think that we during COVID, we went to the housebound people to help them get vaccinated and all that. I don't see why we couldn't do an ID that way. There's so much that can be done. I think that we need to make everyone have the availability of an ID.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you are required, if you aren't on the registered voter list and you haven't stayed active, if you become inactive, it's my understanding you go off to the side and they ask for your identification and your home address and all that. So there are some, I think the other side is saying there isn't any fraud. There isn't anything going on like that. There's no need for it, that we're pushing people out of the right to vote and all that. I don't see that.
Comments from the audience. Massachusetts State Police have lost the respect of the public and do little to regain their reputation. Page 2. Why do politicians make voter ID so complicated? Get an ID and you can vote. That's from DW. Those are the two texts. Colleen, if the state issues a card, like the Mass Health card, it should have my ID on it.
Right.
And since we're in charge of all those Mass Health cards, your card must have your ID on it.
And the SNAP card should have it too.
And if I'm giving a card out, it's simple. You applied, okay. Smile, take your picture. Oh, that's a bad picture. Take another picture. That should be your photo ID. It's a simple thing to do. What about the poor? We give the poor aid.
Right.
Make their card an ID. Not a hard thing, but not in Massachusetts. We want to be able to cheat on elections.
I don't know what they're thinking of. To be perfectly honest, I don't even get it. I don't understand. I think I've known a lot of legislators on both sides, and maybe I've just been fortunate to meet good ones. I may not agree with them, but I think that their intentions are good, that they're representing their districts. And that's where you get into complications on tying things to budgets. They're representing their district, and everybody's trying to get something for their district.
Right.
And you come back home, and if you don't get it, then you get the flack for it. I mean, what have you done for us, so to speak? First of all, let's just to get onto something a little more cheerful.
Oh, we got more text on it, but that's okay. Well, go ahead.
How were the Drake elections?
Very low turnout, extremely low turnout, and we had early voting for it, and it was Saturday until 4. Don Plummer, who was the one that lost the last election, topped the ticket in the selectman race. Tony Achinsky came in second, the incumbent chairman. Jennifer Kopinski, who was an incumbent, lost that election. Jennifer did a great job. there can only be two winners. We were lucky, we had three very good people running. Jennifer did a great job. So that election was good. The school committee race, Linda Truval topped the ticket on that one. Allison Volpe, who was the other incumbent, so the two incumbents won that. Allison Stillian, who was a parent, former teacher in Dracut, she came in third. And then the others were Housing Authority, Tommy Bommel was unopposed. He won.
Yeah.
The moderator, a brand-new moderator, Brian Flaherty, I've known him for years. He's a teacher, high school teacher, and in, I think, Central Catholic. And he has stepped up to do that. I think he'll do a great job. We know how important that is these days. And then library trustee, May Paquette and Andrea Grandy, both incumbents, both won, unopposed. Those two ladies have been in town for a long, long time, both former teachers, and so nobody running against them. So it was good. And then Gay Corey for the Water District, the only one on that ballot, she won overwhelmingly. So it was good.
What water district?
Dracut Water Supply District. So they have the election at the same time.
Is it a separate ballot?
Separate ballot, yeah. Yeah, but it was a very low turnout. And someone suggested that Don Plummer may have won this time because he came out against the trash fees, and the incumbents both voted for the trash
That
fees.
definitely was an issue. I got two comments from the audience.
Yeah.
10 is to get your birth certificate, 35-ish for your license. Doesn't break anybody. That's from DW. There's one more here. The Democrats are for the rights of illegal aliens before they are for the rights of American citizens. That's the hill the Democrats are willing to die on. Thank you for your comments. Back over to...
I would suggest that you don't use a broad brush for, I am a Democrat. I have voted to restrict the emergency shelters to Massachusetts citizens. You know, there are some of us who are more conservative. So, and it's funny because in the election, one of the web pages was saying, well, are they Democrats or Republicans for running for selectmen? And that is a nonpartisan race.
Well, the overwhelming majority of the voters in Massachusetts are unenrolled.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you know both parties are minority. So when you say, I'm a Republican, I'm proud, I'm a Democrat, I'm proud, you're a minority party.
The media fuels all this. I
Well,
think.
you see, the media needs elections
Yeah.
for money. Come and buy your ads from us. And, you know, I know enough media people where, you know what, you know who lost? Those who didn't advertise with us lost. And they're putting it out on the airwaves today.
But the interesting part is that there's no easy way of getting to the public now.
That's
We
right.
don't have the Lowell Sun, which was we don't have enough people reading the Lowell Sun.
Good point. We had an argument the other night, Monday Night Dinner Club, and then I'll shut up, of how did the Draketeers know there was a trash fee? How did they know? They haven't
right.
got the bill yet. How did they know? They didn't know. That's why only a small amount of people voted, because a small amount of people pay attention to the local media, and the rest listen to podcasts of a different color every day. They don't listen to regular radio.
It's very difficult because unless you are purposely engaged in it, in watching these things, you don't. So, it used to be you'd advertise in the newspaper, you'd advertise on the radio.
Used to be people read the newspaper and listened to the radio.
Right, and they don't anymore. It used to be that you could do cable TV ads. Well, now people are
That's gone.
streaming. Then we do the mailings, and the mailings all hit at the same time, and nobody even looks at them. You try to do door knocking, and a lot of people don't want you walking up to their door.
Right.
So it's very hard to try to get out there, and when people use a broad brush about Democrats do this and Republicans do that and so forth, it's very difficult. So I guess you just do whatever you can to make your record known throughout both years of the, for me, the 2 years rather than just at election time. And hopefully the word spreads.
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right. We had our town meeting last night.
Oh, how'd that go?
It was a joke.
What was the turnout?
It was a very low turnout. I said.
Did you go?
Oh yeah, I said because the pork issue was coming up.
Was there food?
No, there was no food.
If there
But
was
we've had big crowds, John, without food.
Linda,
but we had we
Linda,
had money issues.
Roger School. This is like 20, 30 years ago. The principal, I was on this little board of people, and they said, we can't get the parents to come. I says, well, you have it at supper time. Why don't you just have pizza or something easy? Get 25 pizzas, and it can't cost that much money, and people will come. They got 25 pizzas, and they ran out of pizzas. They had so many people show up. So if you have food and you brag about it,
They do that at the State House.
you're going to get a good crowd. Well, does that happen out at the State House?
They'll have a briefing on something and they'll say, coffee and snacks will be served and more people will go to them, yeah.
I know, but
What's in it for me? You get, the general public, the kiddos nowadays, ask themselves, what's in it for me? Give them a piece of pizza, give them a donut, give them something to eat, even trade.
Unfortunately, you can't really, and that's one thing that I've always been upset about is that, they've made the 150-foot barrier that you can't, the zone that you can't approach people at the polls. And I remember my whole career started when I started volunteering with John Cox after I met him at the polls when I went to vote, and I shook his hand. So when you can't actually meet the candidate,
that's right.
It's difficult.
For both, for you and for the candidate.
Yeah.
The candidate has no idea what your interests are if they can't actually meet you. And as you say, there's no platform to meet the candidates. It's very difficult, even on social events. Community events. We're really lacking in that. It's very unfortunate.
And that's been part of it, even going back to Lake Muscatbeck, is it seems like, and I don't want to specifically, but I've heard from other police officers that the newer generations don't want to do all the details. They don't want to spend time away from their family, and which is a positive. But on the other hand, we still need people to do the details. And it's even with the American Legions, they have to try to make it family friendly because it's not like the old days when the wife, the mother, took care of the kids at home and the father, who was a veteran, would go to the Legion after work for a little while and then go home. It's the families, one parent is taking the children to one thing and the other parent's taking the other child to this, and they're having dinner here and they're doing that. And if you're going to have people who regularly get involved, you have to make it family friendly. So it's difficult. I mean, I was surprised at the lack of competition in the Dracut elections. Tingsboro for a few years now has been not a lot of competition.
No one is running against Adele.
What do you pay them? What do you pay a selectman in Tingsboro?
I don't think they really do it for the money. You can't.
Well, Colleen, would you work for free?
But people always ran, John, I know where you're going with that.
Those days are gone, Linda.
When we actually had people running, even in Lowell, they didn't get a lot of money. In Tingsboro, they didn't get paid, and you had great elections, and you had a lot of competition, and you weren't running to get
When you were
paid.
select woman, how many people voted when you were select woman?
Oh, God.
Thousands.
Yeah.
And now it's hundreds. And
I don't think it's a money issue, John. I really don't.
if you look at the expenses of today's parents, each kid has a cell phone. Each kid has an iPad. Each kid has a laptop. Each kid has a TV in their room. They have internet all over the place. Those were expenses I never had.
Right.
You never had. when my kids were kids. And now they all want a car instantly when they're 16. You're not going to get a car. You're going to pay for it yourself. It's everything. All these things are awarded to your kids, and you still expect your town officials to work for free. I think it's a mistake. And I got this big microphone over here, and that's what I use it for. And I'll stop talking. Thank you.
Boy, you're on a roll today,
No,
John.
I just think you stop. It's for free. Who's working for free?
But I don't think the people who are running are doing it for the money. They're doing it because they care.
They're
And
doing it because they care, but you can't afford to give up your second job to be a town official.
Well, now the selectmen don't have as much responsibility because there's town managers in this position. I remember back when I was just graduated from college and I was working in the selectman's office in Drake and go to the selectmen's meeting, and they were the ones making the determination. That was before we had a town manager. Now there's certain things that the town manager is in charge of that the selectmen don't have to. So they're more policy making and getting the reports from the day to day.
And I'm saying, and it's interesting that you bring that up because we have had, now we're on our second manager. What a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a manager that's trying to recreate and reestablish that community that has been lost.
Yeah.
It's
And he's a local, so he
Yeah.
knows, and
Yes.
he loves the community, and I think he's doing a great job. What happened last night, though?
It was nothing. Nothing. Nobody questioned, except for Billy, nobody questioned a thing.
Who's Billy?
Billy Crawford?
Yeah. He's been on the finance committee and he's very active and he
So what are the issues that Billy brought up last night?
he brought up some issues on the stormwater that was kind of complicated and he kept saying every time he got up to speak he would say I'm asking a question. Doesn't mean I'm against the article. Now the fact that you have to say that, you have to even say is sort of intimidating, I think, to anybody else that might want to, somebody that doesn't understand. First of all, I didn't know anybody there,
Really?
except for Augie and Ed Derby. They weren't there. Hillary wasn't there. I mean, they weren't there.
Yeah.
And here we had
Was it on TV?
yeah, it was on TV, and I guess I'm hoping that somebody watched it at home. But I thought it'd be controversial about the fire department. Nothing, not a peep.
So that passed.
Everything passed.
Okay.
So
Everything passed.
what
We
we-
were done. Wait a minute. We were done by 8:00.
Taxes going up?
Oh, of course they're going up. You know what the most controversial thing was? The VOC. Because the VOC budget, our share went up 16%. And I don't even know who the selectman was that said, go call Colleen Garry so she can change the formula, which is ridiculous. But it was totally not even relevant to what the issue was.
Yeah.
But again, Colin explained the VOC and the budget and how it comes about and your percentage and it's based on enrollment and et cetera, et cetera. And so, and there've been some changes on that, but
Well, what did you speak about?
I spoke about nothing.
Okay.
So were there
Well,
was
first-
any ballot votes, or
No. Nothing.
are they still doing the card thing?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Drake had got the clickers
Oh.
at the last town meeting, and that was part of the controversy is that, and I suggested they get a visible clock, a second clock. So they say, when it hits, you're going to have 2 more minutes, and when that stops, that's when the voting's going to close, instead of just the moderator saying ballots are closed. And
Excellent.
and it was, I think it's a good idea because we would always do the standing vote. And you can be really intimidating to people looking around to see which way people are voting.
Yeah.
This is private, maybe the person next to you can see you do it, but, and it was, there wasn't, we were working on the MBTA communities housing vote, and I think they had put down one of the amendments, and then to pass it, they had they had been positive to put the one that was weaken it or delay it, and when the vote came, it was only, I think it was 7 votes difference, and it was denying it. So it was a lot easier to do it that way than have everybody leave, go out to vote at their precincts, come back in. So I think it's going to be good, and Brian Flaherty, the new moderator, will be all involved in that. So I think it's a good way of voting. Other communities have that. So I'm hopeful.
It's interesting because the issue of Mark Bork, I guess what that came down to is the people that knew and the people that didn't know about it, that knew him or knew the controversy. I think that it was unfortunate that, well, first of all, my whole issue on it was what are you going to do, say you're not going to pay for it? You
Right.
have to pay for it.
Right.
And the people that are responsible, the former town manager and the former chief, the ones that are responsible and that aren't even in town anymore.
Right.
So,
Right.
it was such a bad thing that was done the way it was done, and I'm upset in the sense that
Look, is this
wasn't
from
clarified.
last night? No, this is Chesford, never mind. I'm looking for town meetings.
I said,
That's-
who is he?
That's Chesford, that's Chesford Town Meeting, and they got a good crowd.
Oh, they have representative though, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's been discussions in the past about making it go to a representative town meeting where people would be more involved in it that would be voting. But I still like the open town meeting.
I
That
love
any
open town
registered voter can walk in there and vote, can get up and speak, and have their voices heard. And, we have had large ones where we've had to fill the auditorium
Yes.
and go to other locations, and they take the votes from the other locations and watch it on TV. But we haven't had that problem in a while, and I don't know.
Yeah, I was just taken back. I was pleased that there were a lot of people I didn't know, which means that they're coming into town and they are getting involved. Because, if you are a new resident in town, there's nothing better than a town meeting.
Yeah.
Go in and then you can ask a question. And
Was there anything for the schools on there? Anything specific besides the budget?
No, no. The budget flew through. Colin gave excellent, explanations of things. The people involved, but even the finance committee, nothing. It was like we were done at 8:00. I said to Augie, I don't even know what to say about it.
Well, the other thing too is, I think the previous town
Amanda,
manager
is this
did it
it?
too. This, Billy?
Now there's Billy.
So this is it.
This
Yeah.
is it.
I can only imagine if you guys had pizza, I think you'd get a bigger crowd. Where were you sitting, Linda?
I was if he sat back, you'd see Bob because of his hat.
Oh, you have a black shirt. You have a black turtleneck or something on, don't you? Is that you back there?
No.
No?
No. Oh, I know where you can, but.
But it's mostly old timers like me.
Yeah, maybe they don't understand that they can go and speak at a town meeting. But it's,
I know Colin had a informational night, I think the week before.
Yeah.
And the prior town manager had done that as well. So I think that's helpful.
Yes. It's a whole new cast of characters. You have a new clerk, you have,
You get a new town clerk?
yeah. Joanne Schiffer's retired.
I'll have to go out there and get some death certificates.
Yes, quickly.
No, that's how I get to meet them. I have to go
Yeah.
and get them, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard nothing but good things about Colin, that you can get in to
There's
see
Jackie
him.
right there, the town clerk and selectman.
This is the town clerk here? That's the new one?
No, those are the selectmen.
I thought is that the town clerk on the
It
end?
says Jackie Collins. or something like that, Jackie, something or other.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we have 5 selectmen.
Yeah, there's Eric, Ron, Mike, and Jackie.
So
I'm just fast forward a little bit to get
it's,
different camera
you know,
angles.
as I say that, and now, interestingly enough, at the election, there's an actual competition for finance committee.
Really?
I know, which I think is wonderful because I think finance committee is the most important committee. There's Rob Kidd.
The best voice for a town moderator ever. He could be on the radio.
Yeah, he's been there. My goodness gracious.
Yeah,
Seems
as long
forever.
as I known.
Yeah, he, there just wasn't. A couple people got up
Brian
and
Martin?
did Brian Martin, yeah, to explain the sewer. A question that was asked really wasn't relevant to what was going on with the sewer. They don't. But we voted, like the maps for the floodplain and the changes and all that. And I just got the impression that nobody had a clue. There was,
The
now,
meeting was 49 minutes.
yeah,
Wow.
I'm glad I went in a sense, but I'm very disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I miss that, we talked earlier about the elections and people, you don't have the enthusiasm or the interest or the issues. Now, maybe we don't have any issues, but I think we do. I mean, I know the school, we're running into a little bit of overrun there. You'd think that the parents would be concerned about that. We'll see. I want to get Allison on because I think that what's happening with the golf course in that park is
Right.
kind of exciting.
Ironwood Park, yeah, and that they'll be opening on June, I'm trying to think the date. They're going to have concerts there.
Yes.
On Thursday nights during the summer, on like one a month. Let me see if I can find that. The opening, June 7th. They're doing the grand opening and the health fair there as well. It starts at 10 o'clock. And then at 11:15 or so, they're doing a concert. And then again at 2:30, I believe, they're doing another concert. So it'll be fun. It's a great way to introduce people to the Ironwood Park, the old Tingsboro Country Club. And
Yeah.
I love Allison.
I do
She
too.
does an incredible job.
I've had
I
her on.
actually made her unsung heroine 2 years ago. We were allowed to, the Mass Commission on Women, the Status Women does this unsung heroine every year, and we're allowed to nominate someone. Last year, I did my former aide, Luann Gendro, who has been part of the Rotary forever. She has, when I left presidency of the Scholarship Foundation in Drake, she took over for 3 or 4 years. She's just been so involved, and she was a school committee woman before that. So I had her last year. The year before, we had Allison. This year, we have Teresa Clausen, who is so involved with Allison in all of the things that they do, from the Festival of Trees to the Bridge Party.
Yeah.
She's very involved with her church and group. So that will be this year's unsung heroine from our district.
I was on the State Commission for the Status of
Were you?
Women
Oh, wow. Cool.
under Mike Dukakis a long time ago.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Dukakis.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was sad that he lost Kitty, but he was just at the State House the other day. He's still trying to do the north-south rail link between North Station and South Station.
Well, didn't they had it for a second?
They were talking about it, but I think the
they had a
Big
few
Dig
runs-
threw that all off. I think it should have been incorporated in the Big
Yeah.
Dig. So they were pushing for that. Bussinger, who was a former rep, he's
Yeah.
always been pushing for that. But James Ostis, who used to be my legislative aide, is over in Senator Kennedy's office, and he posted a picture with Mike Dukakis and that he had been at the State House that day.
So Colleen, the budget's passed?
The House budget is passed. Now the Senate just released their budget. Their members
Isn't it the
have...
same pot of gold? Is it a different pot of gold?
Right, but it's priorities. So the governor gives us their budget, and people will say, you people voted for these taxes. Well, we have no taxes in our budget. The governor had some tax increases in the budget, and we have not done any of those. And then it's my understanding the Senate is not doing any of those. So what happens is the governor puts in her proposal. That's like a wish list. And then the House does their version. Then the Senate does their version. And then 3 members from the House, 3 members from the Senate meet in conference, and they negotiate out all the differences between the two and come up with a conference committee vote. And that report goes back to the House and the Senate for a vote. So honestly, when you look at it, we're like giving chits to our members to bring to the conference committee.
And what do you mean chits? What's that mean?
Well, just when you're negotiating, like if you're playing cards, oh, I have these cards, you have these cards, let's see, I could trade you this one for this, and that's what happens.
How's the Rock Bridge doing? Was that spoke about in the budget?
No, because that's already in the works. I believe it's part of a bond bill, and that's getting the federal money from, so that's still in the works. That's not in an operational
Trump
budget.
didn't cut that yet?
Not that I know of.
Any more big issues about the governor's housing?
Yeah, there's a lot. I had co-sponsored numerous bills, numerous amendments on that, because, we're getting hit with 40B projects, we're getting hit with the MBTA communities. Honestly, if we have a housing crisis, and I've spoken to it on the House floor, that it should be every community in the state should be doing their part, not just those who are adjacent to a community that has the railway and so forth.
Because we don't have public transportation. That's the joke.
Yeah, we have, in Drake, we have one that comes from Christian Hill and comes up. Last stop is in my plaza, where my law office and district office is, in Loon Hill Road. And then the other one goes from Drake through Drake to Tingsboro and back. And so there's no way anyone could regularly commute to work. And that's what it's supposed to be able to get people to commute. And in a city, yeah, you've got the, trolleys, that you got the subway, you got, different buses.
But even that's not working.
In lovely Lowell, right now, we're having free buses until September. The buses are running empty.
That's to try to encourage people to try
But
it.
where are they going to go to? They're going to go to the station, and then they have to change again. I don't. They can't even get from point A to point B in Lowell. It used to be you'd come into the center
So we're spending a
hall.
lot of taxpayers' money on transportation that people don't use.
There are some people, and if you cut out it, then you're going to have more
I'm
difficulty.
not suggesting we cut it out. I'm suggesting that we take a look at the way we are doing it.
Yes.
And maybe we could do it differently.
Yeah.
Like to advertise, have you seen any, okay, you're a public official, so you know the buses are free. And how would the average person know the buses are free?
Well, I would think that
Hey, Greg.
there has been some
How
discussion.
about the bus banner says, free buses? It says, I'm going to Gorham Street, I'm going to Drake Town Hall, free bus.
Yeah.
Free bus today, free bus forever.
Yeah.
Come sit down. You just walk right in.
We just had our newest guest.
So good to see you.
Come on in.
Hey, Colleen.
How are you? You're making the rounds. I saw you on a video from inside Lowell.
Actually, he started me about 3 or 4 months ago, but then I had the hernia operation
Yeah.
for the surgery, so.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good, good. Yeah.
Gracie, just came in the-
Welcome, Greg Pappas.
Turn that mic on, Greg.
turn this
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, a little button at the bottom.
There we go.
For those who don't know, Greg started out years ago as a legislative aide to the then rep, Nick Lambros.
Yep.
And then he worked for Treasurer Crane, and
Yep.
then he worked for Secretary Galvin.
And I worked with you.
Yep.
Because you were working for Johnny. You
Yep.
weren't that far behind me. You
Yep.
were only like, I started 77, you got Johnny and
I was
Johnny and I were
86.
aides together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1986 is when I started working
Yeah,
for John.
yeah.
And, yes,
Yep.
so we go
Now
way
they
back.
Cox, Bob Cox's brother,
Yeah, Johnny Carr, our rep, yeah.
Yeah.
who now lives in Tingsboro.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, John lives in
But we were
Tingsboro.
all there we saw it all. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, Ron Mariano, what am I saying? Mariano was a legislative aide.
Yep.
With me and John,
Yep,
for Bobby Sarasoli.
Yeah, the
And you
chair,
too.
the chair of
Yeah.
Ways and Means,
Yeah.
Aaron Mikowitz, was an aide as well.
Right, yeah.
To Sal DeMacy,
We saw lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Can't explain what we saw.
No. Well, he worked for the election commission, and he was in charge of the elections in Lowell.
Yep.
I came in for 2 years to help.
Yeah.
We fixed it up, and now we
Yeah.
got a good person in charge now.
Yeah.
We stole another person from the secretary.
Oh, did
And-
ya?
Well, Will's from Lowell, Will Rosenberry.
Okay.
And Will was kind of like the assistant director, but he worked for Michelle, so he did everything else
Okay.
that I was doing too. So we got Lowell set up good with a Lowell person too.
Cool.
Do they still have the bunker? Oh,
I did that for actually longer than elections.
Yeah.
I did that from 97 to 2015.
that was a division of the secretary. of
Yeah,
State.
we were the communications thing for all the Homeland Security. I'm not there. I mean, I got out of it, and I was on the state board with I was the only one that sat there with the governor and all of them because the secretary didn't go, so I sat on that. I forget what the board's called. But anyways, no, I'm not there, but it's funny. You never can get away from it. I still get the alerts.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, they never take you off the alert thing, so.
But they're still operating, and they're in
Oh,
Worcester?
yeah, they operate a little bit differently because the secretary pulled us out in 2015, and they had to go to a different, because they were trying to eliminate, it was the public could call in and see what things were going, but at the same time, we were also trying to do the job, like, we would get calls like on 9/11, Mount Sinai would call us, the hospital, we need 5,000 needles. So I had 15 people, and while we were trying to answer questions of the public, we're trying to get 5,000 hypodermic needles when planes couldn't fly down to Mount Sinai. So we had to work with the Navy guys in the other room, and
So
It was
the
a-
bunker, maybe you can explain
Yeah.
to people what the
Yeah.
bunker is and who runs it.
yeah.
It was-
President Kennedy actually built it. It's in Framingham. It's an incredible building. I mean, you can sleep and feed 300 people underground for a year. It's all nuclear protected and everything. And they really updated after 9/11, because when New York City got taken out, that was your homeland security. So we kind of helped New York and the surrounding towns, surrounding states. And we ended up getting, if you look at NCIS with the stuff on the wall, we do that, and the computer things, that's the bunker now. It's hard to explain. You have to go down and see it. It's just absolutely great. And the sad thing is, when you first walk in, there's a letter saying on the wall saying, "Just really sorry, I can't make it today. I was hoping to come, but I got to go to Dallas." Was President Kennedy's last letter. It's on the
No.
wall. Yeah. But the stuff we even during that bad storm in New England that went all the way up to Maine, we worked that thing even though it didn't affect Massachusetts as much. And Artie Bernard and Governor Patrick walk in. Artie was the chief of staff, and we went to college together. And Artie's coming down the thing. I'm going, I said, "Hey, guys, what's going on?" 3 weeks, we're finally getting to go back downstairs. "I just want to go back down." I go, "Okay, fine." 20 minutes later, Obama walks in, the president.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just like, it was a crazy place.
Yeah.
There was such different things that would happen down it, but the training that the people got was incredible. We
Hey,
were
I gotta
top
get
in the
these-
nation, I think.
Greg, I got to barge in here. I want to get these two
Yeah.
texts before we go to break. Mark Kratman, Tewksbury Selectman.
Congratulations to him on his reelection.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Chris, good morning. Fun listening to the old memories.
Always good to hear
The
from you,
good old
Mark.
days, great show. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you, Mark.
Now, see, now Tewksbury, we talked about earlier, the apathy. Tewksbury that I always kid about, Oz, they've got it right at this particular point
Moving
in
right
time.
along, next text is, why is the turnout so low in local elections? Local politicians affect your life far greater than when we vote for the American mafia. The real criminals in America reside on Capitol Hill. We fight over red and blue, white. Capitol Hill steals all the gold. Thank you for your comments. Back to you guys. Time, Michelle, we're going to go to break
Oh, okay.
in a minute or so.
I think, I was telling a story the other day, of Colleen's too young to remember, but when I was a kid, Drake had like 13,000 people, and like 10,500 were registered, 8,500 would go vote in the local elections. But it was in March. And then they thought, well, we can get this up even higher, we'll move it to May. Worst thing they did. They moved
Yeah.
it to May, it fell in half. I think the winter thing that they thought they were avoiding,
The same
people had
thing
nothing to
they
do.
vote. Yeah.
You shut in, you want, so let's go vote. They moved it to May, and it cut everything. It was really not, it wasn't good
Interesting.
intention, but
Well,
But the early voting now, my understanding, and I don't know if you have anything different, is that the same people are voting. they're just voting at different times. There's not a
Differently.
lot of new people voting.
Right, there's not a lot of new people voting, that's true.
Everything they're doing
Yeah.
isn't bringing out the vote. In fact,
No,
it dwindles everything they do
Right.
seems to have the opposite
Yeah, it's
effect.
just, and I think the world's so fast and fast and fast today that people don't have a clue. Like
I
he
think
said,
if you guys pass voter ID, same day registration and vote should be in order at the same time. So if I don't know that, okay, we put the placards up all over town.
yeah,
Okay, well, I'm not registered to vote. The process it's a 1900 process, and we should come into the 2000s.
But the reality is I still believe there's a risk of fraud if you have same
Oh,
day.
you can't
Yeah.
have same.
So
that
they
didn't
vote
work
in
New
one
Hampshire.
election in Drake-it, and
Yeah.
then 2 weeks later, they vote in Tingsboro because they say they live somewhere else, or they
Right,
vote in New Hampshire.
right.
And they
We had
had-
a Drake-it kid that
Yeah.
got caught voting in New Hampshire where he went to school and in
Drake-it,
Drake-it.
What
right,
happened to him?
right. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't,
They gave him a big bowl of nut and
Right.
honey.
he ended up on probation, I believe.
We gotta
but-
go to break. We'll be back. Thanks.
Right. Go back and register to vote for what
It would be in the computer, but legally you could do it. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to City Life. I'm Linda Bown. I'm your host. I have Representative Colleen Garry from Tingsboro and Drake-it, and I have Greg Pappas, who worked for the Election Commission. Had worn many hats, but was in charge of elections in Lowell until this past year when he retired. So he is a wizard on elections and election law.
Because of Mr. Galvin, more because of Bill.
Yes, the Prince of Darkness.
Yes, the Secretary of the Commonwealth,
Does he
yeah.
have more than one suit?
What's it, Bill? No, he doesn't. That's
No.
funny people say it, yeah.
He's the strangest person
But he's scary bright, yeah.
Usually
there
you
are-
have
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
he's very bright.
There are
Usually you have to have a
stranger.
personality to be an
Yeah.
elected official,
Yeah.
and
No.
he's very.
And he always does so well.
He does well with the public because he does a job, but he can barely get past the convention when he has a challenger.
I know.
Because the delegates don't like him, because he's too conservative and,
But the other part
Yeah.
is he does all those videos himself,
yeah.
informational videos,
Yeah.
and that really
yeah.
is
Yeah, we started doing those years ago, yeah.
Get a lot of information
a
on
lot of publicity with
on
that.
voting.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, it's true, but like I said, the 2 times he ran, when we ran for treasurer, when Bob Crane left after, when I was working for him, we came in third just barely got on the ballot, came in third, but we beat the speaker and we beat the state senator in the primary. We lost to Malone in the final, and then if you go back to secretary, just barely again, they were trying to erase the vote to get him off the ballot.
Every time.
Yeah, and he was third on the ballot again at the convention, but he won the primary huge, in the election huge.
Hey, Greg, in Lowell, before we get that far down the pike, okay, in Lowell, I emailed the new guy, never heard back from the guy. In your mind, if somebody's running for city council in District 1,
Yep.
can they get signatures from District 2?
Can they get what?
They need, my understanding, you need 150 signatures to be on the ballot.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to change that, but they.
Now, my question to you is,
Yeah,
when you were there,
yeah.
could people in District 1
Mm-hmm.
sign for somebody running in District 4?
Yeah, they allowed
Who's the they?
the solicitor's office, I remember correctly, and that's how they were doing it prior to, with the new setup that came in with this was, when I had it, it was only the second election with the new system, with the district systems. So they wanted to leave it the same way, which I said was wrong, you shouldn't. And yeah, they could, just like a city councilor at large could get them all over the city, they could, but I always told the people, make sure you get at least your 50 to get nominated in your district, because someday some kid's going to go to a judge and say, these shouldn't be counted, they're from another district.
And I agree with that.
And the judge is going to say, throw them off the ballot. So if I'm running in a district, I would just get them in the district I'm in. I don't care what is allowed. Because I think the judge will tell you, no, that'd be like saying to Rodney Elliott, you can get them in a state rep or calling, you can get them in Lowell.
If this guy ever writes me back, and I'll make time to send.
Well, they will count them now, but.
Now, once I get in writing from the city of Lowell that this is what you need, the signatures have to come from your district, or the signatures can come from any registered voter.
Yeah.
Who lives in Lowell, or any registered voter in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So, once I get an answer in writing, that is going to be part of the lawsuit. Look, the city of Lowell said, this is what you need.
Yeah, and one thing I did, Secretary Galvin, is I learned a lot with him because we went to court a lot. And even in other elections, we went to court a lot. We did Bobby Kennedy and Lowell's recount. And I learned a lot from Bill doing that. And the judge would say, I don't give a damn what Waltham said or what whatchamacallit said. The state law is this, that's it.
Good, okay. Thank you for your information.
Yeah.
And reality-wise, I thought that they went to the district, my understanding is they went to the districts because, like, Belvedere had too much of a vote. So if all of a
Exactly.
sudden you get all the votes for a different area of Lowell, and everybody who signed the nomination papers is from Belvedere, aren't you
Right.
still getting the vote?
Right. And here's the
voice.
other scenario, too. I mean, the same reason, like you said, they wanted to start, in a way, punish people who vote, which is what the system does.
Yeah.
I mean, it does give other representation, but it punishes the people who vote. So why would you want to go, I mean, if you keep allowing this, which I don't know what Will's going to do, but he's got a lot of things to do. But if you allow that, you technically could have Belvedere putting candidates in, people sign up, plugging candidates in.
like the vote.
Yeah, in
the vote.
islands and other places,
That
sure.
is the most confusing thing,
Yeah.
the vote stuff.
Now, interesting, we were
Yeah.
talking about the signatures.
Yep.
Now, Kelly Richardson ran into an
Yeah.
issue because
Yep.
he was the police chief in Lowell,
Vocational school, right?
and he lives in Dunstable,
Mm-hmm.
and the representative from Dunstable said he wasn't going to run, then he decided he was going to run.
Right.
And then Kelly he went to get the signatures, he didn't have enough signatures from Dunstable
Hmm.
to run. So that seems to, is it,
Yeah.
what side is it? That you have to have them from the district or you don't have them?
Yeah.
He didn't have the signatures
Yeah.
for the district for the vote,
Yeah.
but you're right. That whole thing, and Ed Kennedy, I still scold him about that because that was set up that there was a reason the vote was set up the way it was.
Right.
So that the city had 4 votes.
Right.
And the towns had
Right.
4 votes, so that neither could control
Yeah.
the situation. And when they threw it out to one man, one vote, and now, like Kelly Richardson, who I like, and I think he's perfect.
Yeah.
But you could have everybody from Lowell moving out to Dunstable and Tingsboro
Yeah.
and.
And they are. A
And
lot
they-
of people from Lowell are
Yeah,
moving out to the
they're Pepperell.
suburbs.
Yeah, all of those, yeah.
Mike Lindsay and Alan Kazandri could run from Dracut and
Yeah.
top the ticket.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's just,
Yeah.
that's how it is.
It's, it's always stuff trying to make things better, but it usually doesn't. I mean, and like I said, the whole concept, I mean, I know a lot of people like the district system, and I'm okay with it, and I understand there's areas that wouldn't have the representation, because Centerville always was, couldn't, but I mean, if, the point is, if you could do the same thing as Belvedere, just go vote, but they don't. That's,
Well, even
That's
the
true.
Secretary of State spending all that money
yes,
to mail out the information that the application, so you can request a mail-in ballot twice.
twice, Right.
To every registered voter.
lots of money.
And that's a lot of money just in postage.
Yeah.
And
It's
how
almost-
many?
What is it,
I'd
70
like-
cents a stamp now? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've asked for information about that.
Yeah.
How much is it costing and what's the outcome? And I
Yeah.
haven't gotten a response
It's a
from it.
lot of money, and the printing of the ballots with the extra languages on it, because English isn't the national language. Oh, wait a minute, yes, it really is. You know, if you take it to Supreme Court, they're going to vote, yeah, the country was founded on English documents, English ballots, English, of 200 years of documentation prior to, the court would vote. It most certainly is,
Well, then we're going to have to go into,
Yeah.
that has to be
and
in
it costs a lot.
cursive.
And it costs a lot to print those ballots, because
Yes.
they have, and it's confusing with all the languages on them.
Oh, it's,
And then even the languages don't work well, because years ago, when I was told the story at Chinatown, when Tommy Menino was the mayor, and Tommy was an aide with me again, actually, he was across the hall from Joe Tully in Timothy's office, Senator Timothy's office.
Oh, God, that's-
He calls up the office one day, because him and the secretary used to bang heads a bit, and he says, Greg, he goes, what's the story with I get these these Chinese ballads, and ballads have Chinese, the Chinese translation in Boston says big fat man. I said, well, that's what I heard the Mandarin says, but the, what's the other, Chinese language is another Chinese derivative. It means big boss. I said, so yeah, it's good on one, but bad on the other. I says, put Galvin on the line. It's the translations. It's stupid. And you know what? Most of the people in Chinatown, they speak English.
of course.
Yeah.
Good.
And millions of dollars to print multiple languages.
Now, the interesting thing in Lowell, that when the people that oppose the district, and they were saying, well, then it's going to cut down on the vote because you're not going to have the interest, because once you got
It does.
elected, yet that's not the case. Look at Belvedere, look
Yeah.
at the Highlands. You've got people, Corey doesn't have one in Centerville, and I don't think Dan.
Well, I always say no one has opposition until they turn in the papers. There's
Yeah.
no preliminaries until they turn in the papers, because there was supposed to be a preliminary the last year I left, and everybody could say, I don't have the papers yet,
That's
and they
right.
didn't turn them in, so
And
there's no
okay,
preliminary.
you're right.
So you have to really look at that.
But it's looking like there are going to be some.
Yeah, it does.
Contests that I didn't expect, in areas I didn't expect
Right.
there to be a contest.
Yeah. And whereas before that was, so that's another scenario. So let's say the Highlands have one and the Belvedere has one. What's going to happen? How are you going to, there's going to be people in Pawtuckaville and stuff. I thought there was an election today. How do you explain to them it's only
But
one
they will
proposition?
have an election because at large they'll have to vote.
That's in the final.
No, but
There's
they
no
need,
preliminary.
there's no.
Only the preliminary will be, there'll only be a ballot for the preliminary.
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
wait. If you can only elect 3 at large, and you have,
Right.
For-
There is going to be, you think there's going to be a large preliminary?
yeah,
Okay, I didn't know there was, okay.
well, I don't know, but it seems it's going to
Right.
come out to that because there are many candidates running at large. So
Okay.
that's going to make it very confusing.
Right.
So if the district
Yes
doesn't
or
have
no?
opposition, there's not a ballot?
Well, if there, let's put it this way, if there is no at large,
Large.
and the district has no opposition, there's no ballot.
Wow.
So you would just have,
So you don't vote.
So you could potentially just have a district race in Belvedere and one in the Highlands with no at large, and people are going to be going, well, I thought it was election day, my polling place was closed. It happens in Boston all the time. You know,
Wow.
Mattapan or Roxbury might not have it,
Wow.
it's constantly, it's very confusing for the public.
And,
You know.
and they might not have an at-large for the council, but they
Yeah.
have an at-large for the school committee.
Comment
Right.
from the audience, when I lived in Centerville, I would walk right in and vote without ever waiting.
Right,
Now I vote in Belvedere, I have to wait in line.
right, yeah,
At the Rogers School, I never had to wait. I have to wait now.
right.
Did you have the same number of workers in each poll?
Yeah, by law. The thing is, the thing is, it's a preliminary, not a primary. There's a difference between a preliminary and a primary. And they're right about that. And I tell people,
Explain to the audience what the difference is, please.
well, preliminary eliminates a person. It's not a party thing. primaries do too, but it's moves you on to the next level to election. If you are running for re-election, like say Corey Robinson or the mayor in Pawtucket, and he has no opposition, there'll be no primary or preliminary. Whereas even if there is, like you as a rep,
Right.
if there's a primary, Colleen's still on the ballot with nobody running against her, but she might have a final in the final. So you have to, that's a primary, you have to print the ballot. Preliminaries. and-
Because it's a party?
Right, because
Party
it's a
nomination.
party.
Non-party, it's
Right.
preliminary.
Right.
And if it's a
Right.
party, on
Right.
the party elections.
And Drake did a great thing the other day. I went to vote in person, and the ladies, I always say ladies because most women run most state elections, clerks, and the staff. They had a thing when you walked up, and that's why Belvedere has lines also. And what the machine, you have to ask the person's name for the thing to put in the machine to check their voting status that day because they could have registered, So the thing is, they had a little sign saying, if you show an ID, we can't ask you by law, but if you show an ID, you put it on the machine, and sure enough, you just put the ID on, boop, gone next, boop, gone next, boop, gone next. The other thing too, in Belvedere, there was a polling location, there were 3 inside, and one had a lot of activity and the others didn't. People were standing in line in the wrong one. So what I had was some of the kids that we got some really great kids in Lowell from Lowell High School, and we sent them out there, and they had them on their phones and said, where do you live? Oh, this isn't the line, you gotta go inside, you're over here, this long line is for 3-1 or whatever, it's 3 2s inside on the other side, and that's what you try to, because of that. But if you have your ID ready, folks, they can't ask you, which is crazy, but they can't ask, but you go out in, you put it on that machine, the lady pressed the button, ballot, give them a ballot, they're all set, yep, give them a ballot, what's your last name?
Did you have that in Lowell?
Oh, yeah.
Those machines?
Yeah, just like we have in Drake, yeah. And they just say, Colleen Garry, what's your name, Colleen? Yep, that's her, give her a ballot, boom, next. Craziest thing in
And
the
it
world.
goes backwards on the machine, so they're actually not verifying you are that person, but you have that ID.
Right.
Because they only
Well-
do the scan of the back of the card.
Right, exactly, right. So,
Absolutely.
it's all crazy, yeah, think about it, you can get a beer, but you can't,
Yeah, we talked about that earlier,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
you
There's
can't
no
even
excuse.
get a medication over,
Yeah,
you know, that
yeah.
requires it. Can't get Sudafed without it.
There's
No.
absolutely no excuse
No,
for that.
you're
The only
absolutely
persons that
right.
argue against IDs they're arguing for, they're trying to steal something, I'm sorry. Don't tell me that,
I don't understand it. Yeah.
I have
it
friends in
makes no
minority, they don't want to hear that. They don't even want to be called minorities anymore. They don't want to be called other ethnic backgrounds, just want to call people,
Yeah?
I got a new one for you. I recently saw a report about restricted housing. Any idea what that is?
No?
Restricted housing.
No.
Prisons.
Oh, that's what prison is now?
That's the new
restricted
name for prisons.
housing? Wow.
Restricted housing.
It's all going to crash and burn if we don't change stuff, and you know that. I mean, it can't sustain itself. I mean, the money's going to get shut off from the feds.
Well,
This
and
is gonna
that's exactly
continue.
what's happening.
I mean, and there's no argument the mayor I mean, I met her she used to work for Mayor Menino, and nice person, but, there's no argument to be protecting people here illegally. They're not immigrants, they're illegal aliens. That's the law. You go on immigration, you say immigrant, they say, where's the paperwork? Oh, you're illegal, that's different.
Well, we all know immigrants. I mean, Var is from Lebanon. He's an Armenian
But you got to
refugee.
come in with your papers to be
Yes.
status.
And they
You have
get
to go through the process.
insulted.
Try to look at the
Even
monitor,
Bown was
please.
a,
Of course.
Try to look at the monitor, please.
oh.
But the reality,
Yeah.
though,
Yeah.
there are people who are here
Right.
on visas
Right.
who, have the permission to be here.
That's correct.
Yes.
And they're getting pulled into this whole
Yep.
discussion. I was talking about some of the
Yep.
people on Mass Health, some of the people and
Right.
somebody on Facebook was yelling at me saying, just call them illegal aliens.
No, those
And
are
it's like,
people
no,
here-
there are people who are
Right.
refugees, who have temporary protected status,
Right.
who have visas, green cards, they're here with documentation. So you're talking about documented and undocumented.
Right.
And,
But if you're here on a visa and you're going to school and you show up at a protest, you don't have the right to do that.
Yeah,
You go
there's
to-
certain
you go to-
criteria as far as.
You go to France and you do that, and you're visiting, you're going to school in France or Great Britain, and you show up at a protest, they see you, you're out of the country. You're not supposed to be protesting, you're supposed to be there to learn, to go to school, period, not to interfere with their own society.
This isn't France. We learn a lot of stuff slow.
well,
Yeah.
I think there's a difference if you're fighting for humanitarian issues.
Yeah.
And that's, a concern that I have is that, do they have freedom of speech. And
But
I
there it is,
believe-
freedom of speech, but not to burn buildings and not to be aggressive and not to,
right.
you know, freedom of speech to debate, freedom of
I
speech
think,
to, you
Linda,
know,
I don't think you should have the rights of a citizen if you're not a citizen.
I actually looked up the amendment, and at one point in the beginning of the amendment, it talks about citizens or naturalized persons.
Right.
But at the end, when it talks about due
People.
process, it says persons.
Yeah, right.
So there's a concern, and
Right.
that, you know, that it's going to have to be decided by the you know,
Well,
Supreme
Supreme
Court.
Court.
Well, there was a
There are-
Supreme,
When you go back to the Boston Tea Party, where the Bostonians got all ticked off because they were paying a tax on tea, and they had no representation over in England, taxation without representation.
Right.
Every Tom, Dick, and Mary, legal, illegal, living, if you're living, you're paying tax on gasoline. You're paying taxes. And you have no right to vote. So when that sinks in, you have to realize that taxation without representation happens in the United States of America every day.
But those who are on visas and who are working, and those with a green card
card,
are
pay-
working,
yeah.
and they are paying taxes.
that's what he's saying, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And they can't vote.
right.
And so that's what's, the real issue is, everybody should be able to vote, everybody.
no.
Well, the
All
citizens,
taxpayers should be able
Somebody
to vote.
said that there was
Yeah.
$650 million has been paid in 2022 by immigrants who are here working legally.
right. Probably, yeah.
And so, you know, there is a difference. We can't put them, all the immigrants into one.
Absolutely not.
And I think there
Yeah.
are some people who do that, though.
And
If
there are
you're
people
not a
coming.
citizen, you're an
but,
illegal
you know,
immigrant. And
they're
it's not.
following the path
Yeah.
to citizenship.
It's- yeah,
And you
until you
don't
get
want to
the-
punish any of
yeah.
them. I don't think anybody wants to.
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
But there
from-
is not a path
I'll-
for some people.
When you're
Right.
done, Greg, we're gonna go do announcements.
But John, I'll give you an example why you don't want to do that. When I was 15, I'm working for Market Basket, Demulis's. It was Demulis's. I'm paying taxes, and I couldn't vote either, and I'm an American citizen. So the argument, doesn't wash for people who are working that are here on visas, because American citizens don't get to vote till they're
It's
18.
citizenship.
It wasn't till
It's all
21.
about citizenship.
Okay,
Age
your
20
microphones are
yeah.
still gonna work, so if you make a comment, the
We'll
audience.
try
can hear.
not to.
No, you can if you want to. So if you want an announcement on City Life, easy thing to do, send me a text. Send me, text work best, so just send me a text. Today is May 7th. The Lowell Senior Center is having stuffed cabbage today with egg noodles, and it's really yummy. I've had this, and it's $2. The only rule is you gotta be 60.
Shepherd's pie.
60 years old. And you can live in Timbuktu, that's cool. So today, get over there around 10:30 with your $2. If you don't have the $2, it's free. So walk in the front door, a nice gal by the name of Tara, talk to her, and she'll give you a ticket. Sit down around, just before 11, they start serving the food, and it's yummy. So moving right along today, out in Chelmsford Senior Center has lunch every day too. But they don't have it on weekdays, on weekends, I'm sorry. So today, they have a Mother's Day lunch. Chicken, broccoli, ziti, Alfredo sauce, garden salad, strawberry, pudding parfait. So that's out in Chelmsford. And it says all meals include milk, bread, margarine, subject to change without notice. Suggested donation is $2.50 per meal. Under 60, I didn't know they let under 60 in there. It's $4.50. So you can bring your little brother with you if you want. This program has been made possible in part by funding from Older Americans Act as granted by age span. I'm gonna guess that's federal money. So at any rate, that's Chesford today. So, coming up this weekend, May 10th, the car wash for Lowell High lacrosse team. It's gonna be up at Alumni Field, starting at 9 a.m., going right till 1. So hope for a beautiful weather day on Saturday, and go up there and get your car washed. Help out the kids with Lowell lacrosse, Lowell High School lacrosse. This is a pretty good idea. Lowell Police putting this on. You can register for a free ticket, a ticket to go to the amusement park, Canopy Lake Park, on July 16th. And they have 50 spots on a bus. They'll pick you up. They'll bring you to the park. You're going to have a great day there. There's only 50 tickets, so what you need to do is be in touch with the Lowell Police Department. Take your your phone out of your pocket, go take a picture of this slide if you want your kiddo to go to this for free.
And you have to live in subsidized housing.
12 to 18?
Okay, you gotta live in subsidized housing, so if you live in a
Interesting.
housing project, you're in here, baby, but you gotta have a ticket. Gotta have a ticket, so be in touch with the local police, good idea. Moving right along, party for Rodney Elliott. Rodney's having a party, May 15th at the China Star Restaurant, 733 Middlesex Street in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts. Hope to see you over there. That's Thursday, May 15th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. This St. Michael's Church. If you have stuff, you're cleaning out your house, you got a bunch of clothes, you got a bunch of whatever you want to get rid of, consider dropping it off at St. Mike's, and they're going to find a new home for it. This is a pretty good idea, so there's
Spring
something-
cleaning.
Yeah. Great idea over at St. Mike's. St. Michael's Church over in Centerville. So again, take your phone out of your pocket, take a picture of this slide, and you might want to participate. It's a bargain. If you're looking for stuff, it's a bargain, and it's a real good place to drop off some stuff that's been gently used. This guy, Jeffrey Kuna, he has a radio show at WRKO, and he's going to have a Audit the Legislature rally on May 17th. And
Yes, flying
everybody's
by.
welcome to go. So that's that on that. Vesna Noon's having a party on Saturday, May 24th, 7 p.m. to midnight at the Sam Peo Meese Restaurant, 450 Chelmsford Street. Hope to see you over there. That's on Saturday, May 24th, for Vesna Noon, City Councilor at Large. Neighborhood meetings in Lowell, whatever neighborhood you live in, all the neighborhoods are here. So just take your phone, take a picture of this, and you know when, if you live in the Highlands or Beck Central, wherever you live, Belvedere, take a picture of this and go to your neighborhood meeting. You get a lot of great information when you go to a neighborhood meeting. This is coming up at the Immaculate Conception Church Healing Mass in honor of Saint Pellegrini. He's the patron saint for cancer. So it's Wednesday, May 28th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. All are welcome. Corey Belanger's having a party. I'm
No.
sorry, Corey Robinson's having a party. I always screw that up. Sorry, Corey. They hit the minus sign. Okay, now it fits. Together we make a difference. So Corey Robinson's having a party on, the date's there something.
May 30th.
May 30th. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Colleen. At the Dompolsky Club, May 30th, 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. And they're going to have music there. And Corey Robinson, good luck.
Is that barbecue too? Yeah. Does it say bar-
Benny's Backyard Barbecue Pit.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's great. Well,
That'll be a yummy,
that-
it'll be a yummy
that-
night.
if you like barbecue, man. whoo-hoo.
Well, and it's May 30th, you know,
Okay, now,
that's-
if you want if somebody needs prayers, call the Monastery of St. Clair, leave them a voicemail, tell them what your issue is, and they'll say prayers for you. These girls have a direct connection to God. They've helped me out tons of times. So if you need some prayers for anybody,
Yep.
consider being in touch with the Poor Clare Nuns out in Andover. That's their phone number. I just call them, I'll leave them a voicemail. Pretty good. Never been disappointed. Out in Chelmsford, we got these big, heavy trucks going down the street, and the neighborhood doesn't like this no more. They're going to have a meeting about this on June 5th. We're going to try to get somebody in to talk about this, and it's a big, maybe whether they'll come in and talk about it or not, I think it's a fruitless battle, but they're going to have a meeting about this on Thursday, June 5th at 7 p.m. at the Chelmsford Police Station. They have a beautiful community room out there, so
The band trucks everywhere?
Yeah.
just on one section of town.
Oh.
Last day of school's coming up for everybody. This is, I got this from from Tewksbury. Last day of school is June 17th. They're telling me Lowell, it ends the 16th. One of my granddaughters says it ends the 10th. So it's coming. The end of school's coming, so Grandma, be prepared for this stuff. That's our last slide, so back over to you guys. Thank you for that.
NASA.
If I could just throw in, not this Wednesday, but Wednesday the 14th, if you want a free concert, the Drake Community Chorus is at Drake High, and the name of the show is Magical Stories. It's free. They're incredible, and it starts 7:30 on May 14th at Drake High School Auditorium.
What night's that going?
It's a Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, okay.
And Leon Grandy runs the
He
chorus.
does a great job.
Yeah, and
Nice
it's
man.
fabulous. It's a fabulous show. So, and it's free. So go and support them, and they usually have raffles and so forth to help support. It's part of cultural council and all that. So that's a good thing to go to for free.
Another good thing, I kind of, not to change the subject, but I don't drive to Boston every day anymore like I did for 45 years.
Yeah.
So I don't tank up every, 3 times a week or 2 times a week. So I tank up once every month and a half.
Wow.
Gasoline's gone down
Oh,
to
yeah.
40 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
I was going down it literally was 38 cents cheaper than it was a month ago.
Wow.
2 months ago.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about that. Usually it
No.
drops a nickel or a
Because
dime,
it
it's
makes
national
Trump
news.
look good, that's why.
It's just crazy. I couldn't believe it. It
We
was
live in a
actually
democratic
30.
state.
Yeah, and one station I went to was 43 cents it dropped
Yeah.
since the beginning of the year. That's crazy.
I know.
And I was talking to Colleen, this is the thing with the bill, I was looking at the bill that's going through Washington, the budget bill that Trump's filing. He's getting rid of the income tax, federal income tax for everybody making 200,000 and under. You're a kid making 45 grand, 50 grand a year, you're going to bring home 9,000 more. You're making 100,000 a year, like my nephew just hit that board thing as a civil engineer coming out of ULO, great program. He's going to make 17 grand more a year if that thing passes.
But the problem is it's also going to cut Medicaid.
It's not cutting cut Medicaid. I don't think it has anything that's the good line I can't believe the lies our friends are telling, Colleen, that we've seen over the years. I was talking to friends I work with in Washington. Medicaid's going to be stronger than ever because they're getting millions and millions of people off of it that shouldn't be on it. There's all these people, it's crazy. It's not going to cut Medicaid at all. It's not gonna, matter of fact, if he goes to a national VAT sales tax, which we should, like Canada has, then everybody pays not on food, not on clothing, just on the basic need things. That will more than cover the federal income tax. So we're able to clean it for everybody else. But can you imagine? I don't care can you imagine making I would have stayed working if I could bring home 17 grand more a year. Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah, it's just. They got to support some of the stuff that's going right, whether you deal with the truth. I don't care who the person is. You've always done that. You're not where you are in the House because you've always done the right thing, and you banged heads with speakers and stuff, so.
You've had to
It's funny
deal with
because
it.
someone put a whole article in a local rag.
It doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know if I call it the rag.
Yeah.
The article was
Yeah.
a rag, all
Yeah.
about how I've just supported corrupt politicians.
No, you never
and
did
all
that.
of that.
No,
And
Max,
that's
you
why
know.
I
supported
can't
my
say you're
district.
the best rep because you represent your district. You know what your
Not the
district
party.
is.
And I'm in the group of the lowest paid
Right.
representatives.
Of course,
But
that's-
And I'm the longest woman.
She always represented the people
Yeah.
and was way ahead of it because people want nothing to do with parties anymore. Democratic Party, they want nothing. Almost 300,000 people have left the Democratic Party in mass since 2020 to now. I was looking at the numbers the other day, about 289,000. Same thing with the Republicans. They're going on a roll. They don't want parties anymore. She's always voted right. She always voted not with the party, which is what the older reps always did. Senators' reps controlled the party, not the other way
But
around.
the other part, though, is the reality is you really have to be in a party to get
That's the
elected.
problem. And the problem is the state committee, which I was on for 18 years, and I left because we put more add-ons on than us people elected. So the add-ons, but they have to put them on because they can't get elected. There's a reason they can't get elected. People don't like what they have to say. Now they control the Democratic State Committee. The
Yeah.
add-ons, the progressives and all that. They're not Democrats.
No, they're
And
not.
I'm
And it's-
stubborn because
Republicans
I
have the
won't
problem,
leave
too.
the party
Yeah.
because I haven't changed, the
But-
party has changed.
Right, me too.
Well, that's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing. And people
And-
know that, though. The Republicans, this is the best. I wish this was around 40 years ago so people could figure stuff. There's more stuff, like she'll say something, and I see somebody pass on, all of a sudden 30,000 people see it. That's why don't worry about the papers. Yeah, the public knows.
Well,
Public's
yeah.
very well informed now, thank God. I have friends that would always wonder, like, what I did stuff. They know it just as good as me now, and I'm saying to myself, thank God, this thing has worked out beautiful. Having internet, Twitter, Facebook, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Power to the people.
Yeah. I do think that people are looking at both sides more than
Much more.
than the main media wants
right.
the public to know.
Right.
They know that a lot of it is nonsense.
Right.
It's
Just
on
deal with
both
the
sides.
truth. And deal with the truth.
And-
I don't care who's right. It's the truth. You deal with the truth.
And the
She always
reality
dealt
is
with the
there's
truth,
not
yeah.
a lot.
Johnny
of-
always dealt with the truth. I'm sorry. Johnny Cox.
But if you look at the news, even TV news, it's the same news over. I think they've really cut back on reporters. When I
Yeah.
started at the State House, Lowell Sun had 3 full-time
Yeah,
reporters
right.
at the State House.
Right.
now they use State House News.
Right.
Or they use
Right.
Bobcats and
Right.
Beacon Hill roll calls.
They
And-
don't want the public to know.
Right.
and
Well, when
they
I
don't-
work-
They've cut back on reporters.
When I worked for Nick, when I started in '77, the first month in that September, the first thing I was weird for me is I'm standing in front of the House chamber. You came down a little later, but Johnny was on the Senate side, Cox. I'm in front of the House chamber doing stuff with Nick, and he used to work right outside the House chamber. Natalie Jacobson would be out there, Chet Curtis would be out there, John Henning would be out there, Bill, the one who was married to Miss Gina Romprum, Howie Carr was a kid, he was out there. Shelby Scott, they were all hanging out in front of, for the first like 5 or 7 years before the House cut went down and things changed. They were all there before they did their, Gail, the pretty black lady on Channel 4 there, the tall woman, I'm trying to remember her name. She's a minister now in Rhode Island, brilliant lady. And they all knew us on the regular level.
Liz Walker.
Liz Walker, brilliant. And they all knew even the Yates, like, Liz Walker, hey, Greg, can you go? I'm going like, wow, Liz Walker, this is cool, I mean, they were all involved right there. And that just went away. And then, those were when they had real journalists.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh.
Gail Harris, what's his name's wife, Scott Brown's wife, she was, incredible. And that's all gone now. And you know what? They deserve, not those, they deserve to be all gone now because they're not journalists, they're not weather people anymore. Bruce Schwegel used to come down, he was a meteorologist, used to come to the bunker. The ones now are just weather readers, and.
Yeah.
Well, the other part is, you've got these groups who are doing mailings and so forth, like Mass Fiscal Alliance, who will send something out and it's not true.
Right, right.
They send
No
something.
fact
saying-
checking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they only want to put a spin on it
Right.
for their
Yes.
side. So we had, on one of the bills, was it the audit bill?
Yes.
Yeah, the audit bill.
Yeah,
The House version was stronger language than the Senate version. So we had sent it to the Senate replaced it with their version, came back to the House. I voted to amend it to put the House language back in, went back to the Senate, they ended up agreeing with
Right.
it finally, it came back for a final vote, I voted against it anyway. They only took that first vote where I substituted the Senate version with the House version, and they said that I supported that I voted for something, I don't know. But if you look at the actual vote,
Yeah.
I voted a different way.
Right,
I don't think it
right.
was the audit, it was something else, but it was like.
I thought it was,
So
because
you
I saw
turn
it
around and
explained,
say, okay, so then I guess all the Republicans wanted the weaker language then.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like, you gotta be honest about it. They sent out a mailing one time to all my people saying that
But everybody
I
knew-
voted against something or
Yeah.
for something, and it was absolutely false.
How do we get credibility back? That's the issue.
You don't need-
Credibility, the media is, nobody believes the
I
media
don't think they
anymore.
need credibility, they're gone. I mean, I don't think I think people are doing fine with it. Like they said, what she was talking about, I saw it all corrected by people on Twitter, saying Colleen did this, and then I'm looking at the person, 30,000 shares,
Yeah.
So the thing is now, we have the budget online, we
Yeah.
have the amendments online, we're doing, all the bills will be online, the summaries are online, the audits are online, and,
The only problem, Colleen, with everything being online, it's difficult to find it. Like, when I just put up Tingsborough's town meeting from last night, it took me 5 minutes to find it. And so you put Tingsboro Town, eventually I found it,
yeah.
but there aren't many viewers out there that are as diligent to look for something. They're gonna say, I want to see the budget, like I'm looking for the contract for Lowell City Manager on the City of Lowell's website. It's on the website, I can't find
I
it.
agree with you on the local ones, but the Colleen's different, the state ones are really good. You go to Galvin's website, and there's like,
No, but
boom,
you see,
yeah.
when I'm gonna go to Google, I don't know who Galvin is. The average person has no idea
Yeah,
who Galvin
well,
is.
that-
I'm
the
gonna go
average-
to Google and
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
okay, I want to look at Greg Pappas's something that Greg Pappas
Yeah.
did at the State House.
Right.
I don't think it's gonna come up.
Yeah, you know-
I'll do it on screen, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
gonna show up.
well, for
You know,
people
but-
who want to know,
Right.
www.masslegislature.gov is where you could find
Yeah.
anything on the legislature, and mass.gov is where you find anything on the state.
Yeah.
in regards to secret things being done with money, everything is reported in the comptroller's site on mass.gov.
And
So-
I agree, but to go to what you were saying, John, I think, 25 years ago, the average person didn't, a lot more of the average people know who they are. I am shocked how many, even my wife's friends who didn't even know who I work for now, oh yeah, you work for that Secretary of State guy, Galvin, they all know. Because the internet has created so much more. It really has. I mean, the average, my sisters pay no attention to stuff. My nieces and nephew, they all, hey, did you know the lieutenant governor? Because, yeah, I knew her before she was mayor of Salem. Yeah, what's her name? They even knew who the lieutenant governor was 25 years ago. The average person didn't even know who the president was.
Yeah.
There's a lot more. I know what John's saying, but there's a much higher percentage of the public involved now, and it's great. It's
Well, I
great
hope
stuff,
so,
yeah.
because I hope they get away from the media, because when you
Yeah.
stop and think that an issue that you're talking about, the audit, and everybody, the media did a spin on that.
Well, yeah.
Oh, they're not getting, and it was very confusing, and people thought, oh, then they won't be audited. Well, you've
Right.
been audited. That wasn't the
Right.
issue at all. Yet, they don't say anything about the bloody housing thing.
Right.
The governor of the MBTA that's killing us.
Right.
It's killing.
Well, same thing on the national level. I found out the other day, I was reading, and I was talking to a friend of mine who was a congressional aide with me. She works for the governor of Idaho, sorry. And she showed me something. I goes, oh my God. I says, I knew George Soros was dishing $150 million a year to CNN. He was paying for CNN.
Yeah.
So, then I found out that one of the top reporters, I'm not going to mention his name, you can take a guess, is getting 20% of his salary from Pfizer. Now that's, they want open, if they turn around and open that up, people say, really, see you later, goodbye, what are you doing? But they
Well,
can't
the drug
survive without
company.
that money because they're not making any money because they're down to less than 500,000 viewers.
Yeah.
CNN, for all of them.
They need.
I mean, I just.
I go out of my mind with
Yeah.
the drugs and the drug ads.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You watch at night and you see, and first of all, you can't get any of the meds. You
Yeah.
cannot get them. Your insurance is never going to pay for them.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's just insane, and I don't understand
It's so crazy.
why.
And then
George
the
did.
insurance rates are going up.
Yeah.
I think Drake is estimating their insurance rates are going to be 20% increase.
The insurance
Yeah.
companies. The insurance companies own the hospitals own the doctors
Right.
right now, and
Right.
it's got to be a change. Because docs can't practice medicine, they have to look at the
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah.
Your arm could be falling off, but if that's not the reason you went in.
Right.
Oh, no, I can't.
I just had my hernia surgery when I had liver surgery back 2 years ago. I had a tumor on my liver, and Beth Israel saved my life. But they did an 18-inch incision, right? And they took that out, and the doctor goes, oh, no chemo, no radiation, you're fine, which is like crazy, right? And by the way, we took out your gallbladder too, 18-inch incision, 4 days later, no pain. I ended up, what happens sometimes on the incision, 2 years later, I developed a small hernia. So they fixed it 3 weeks ago. Well, it was 3 weeks today. I went in and I says, well, why don't we just, it's just a 4-inch incision. They're going to put this 8x10 thing. Well, we're going to do laparoscopic. It was an hour and a half long. The 4-inch incision would have been like 10 minutes. Hour and a half long. I've never been in so much pain in my life. 6 incisions, in, out, to straighten the thing out and get it done. Hour and a half long. And I told the doc yesterday, I says, why didn't they go insurance? They wanted it less invasive, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And the other thing was, he says, well, I thought you could take pain. I goes, listen, my cousin was a dentist for 35 years in Drake, my cousin Nick. People that know me, he used to drill my teeth without Novocaine.
Yeah.
No Novocaine. I had root canals with no Novocaine. I can take pain. I broke my nose in football. They fixed it, went back. I just had a good thing. This almost killed me. That's my wife. I couldn't believe it. I said, just do the incision next time if I have it. God help me. But
Oh, because of the gases and everything,
it
that's
wasn't, it wasn't the gas. It was right where the incisions
Yeah.
were because they go in and out. They keep rubbing the walls of the
Yeah.
incision on the laparoscopic. Miserable. Had it on my shoulder, no problem. But on your abdomen, oh my God. Just wish you did I can't. The doctor can't do what they
That's
want.
right.
Yeah.
They can't,
Yeah.
the tail is wagging the
Yeah.
dog here. And you have someone in a cubicle in Iowa or something deciding whether you should have
Right.
X, Y, or Z.
Right, exactly.
They have no clue.
Right.
Docs can't look at you.
Right.
Docs can't diagnose
Right.
you. Shame on them.
Right.
I think, I have hope that the docs will eventually,
Yeah.
Well, we're losing a lot of primary care doctors.
Right.
And,
you know where they're
there's a
going?
problem.
The VA.
Really? Since it's well.
Because
I didn't know
I
that.
had surgery at the VA, and I was talking to all
Right.
the docs, and from Brigham. Of course, the VA in West Roxbury now is teaching hospital for Harvard.
Oh, they do it
That's
just
great.
like Beth Israel does that.
So
yeah.
you go in there
Yeah.
and he's got 6 docs all
Yeah.
the time. So,
Yeah.
but they can practice.
Yeah.
And it, whole different from seeing there and seeing what I go through.
Right.
And
And when I
wish I had that.
when I just did my
Care.
thing, they wheeled me in the operating. They told me they were going to be there with 9. There was the doctor and another doctor, and then the rest were all students from Harvard Medical.
Yeah.
9 kids in there. I'm all like, okay. Yeah, they were. But it's funny when I did the liver thing. They didn't have them in for that, but I was just surprised with so many in there. They all introduced
Yeah.
themselves before they put me
Yeah.
to sleep, you know.
Yeah.
And
When I was just in the hospital, there were a lot of student nurses, which was great to see from
Yeah.
Yes.
different schools. And
Yep.
because I know my niece graduated during COVID, and she didn't get a whole lot of the clinical time because they
Yeah.
didn't want to expose all of them. But so it was nice. They had people from Northeastern. They had people from obviously UMass Lowell, Riviere, and there were a lot of
yeah,
students.
Beth Israel has a lot of Northeastern student nurses. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good.
Crazy. Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm not real optimistic about the healthcare system right now, but I'm hoping, you gotta hope that at some point when they talk about corruption and
Yeah.
they deal with the drug companies and
Yeah.
they deal with the insurance companies, go to any city in the country, the highest buildings, all insurance companies.
Well, that's funny you say that. Before Colleen was down here, I remember Nick Lambros, and people can think what they want. He was, Nick. He did a lot. He brought sewer into Drake, water to Drake. He was turned down the chairman of Natural Resources, something she would have done, because he didn't want to be owned by the speaker, he's close to him. He spoke 3 times on the floor of the House. I only saw it once, and what happened was I'm standing out in the lobby talking, and the court officer, Stanley Motika, grabs him, comes in, you got to see this. He walks in, the whole place was dead silent, because Nick was speaking. 3 times in 14 years, so he didn't waste people's time speaking 25 times a day like certain ones did. But to go back to that point of, there was a hearing, and we had to use the Natural Resources Committee, which faced the Boston Common, and it was on an insurance thing, and a raising of the insurance rates, and Nick went to the hearing. He wasn't a member up on top. So finally, at the end of the hearing, the chairman, I can't remember who it was at the time, says, any representatives because the place was packed, because you raised insurance, it was big.
Yeah.
And Nick raised his hand, and I go, wow, and he didn't say anything. So Mr. Lambros recognized Mr. Lambros from Drake, and he goes, just only take 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman. He goes over to the front where you're laughing because you know what he's going to do. He opens the front blinds so you can see all of Copley Square. He goes, can somebody tell me that big tall building's name? The lady goes, Hancock. Get a little bigger, the other one, Hancock. What's that one over there? Prudential. I rest my case. He goes, they don't need a raise. They own the 3 biggest buildings in Boston. And they ain't a place like
Wow.
that. But that's how Nick was.
Yeah.
And he made his point. The committee voted down the bill. Maybe they were going to anyways,
Yeah.
but that's how Nick was.
Yeah.
You know, common sense.
Wow, common sense, doesn't that come up all of a sudden? But
Well, some of the ones have been around for a while have it. She still does. I think Rodney Elliott does. He's been around. He started with us way back then. I mean, there's some people around that do have it. I mean, but they're getting pushed out.
well,
They're more interested in, I don't know, I don't want to go into that. I'm very disappointed in some of the children and grandchildren of the people I served with years ago. Their grandparents that were reps would probably slap them 2 sides of Sunday.
oh,
You know?
yes, absolutely. So anything nice and positive we can talk about?
I think that's all positive stuff because it tells you what the stories are,
Wow.
what's going on.
I know.
You know,
but
I've been.
Well, gas
I've-
prices.
You know, all the things that you see online and so forth, I do spend my time checking Snopes or checking factcheck.org and some of those. And one of them, I forget what the name of it is now, there's a website that will show the AP story that goes to all the different
Yeah.
newspapers, and it will say how they reported the same story and which bent, whether it went
Right.
left or right,
Right.
and the same story. And so that's really interesting to see, that it could be the same information and just how it's
Yeah,
communicated.
how they
Yeah.
spin it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Just stop spinning and just start it started, I can remember when the whole spin doctor thing started. I can still see it in my head. Michael Dukakis was our governor and he was running for president. And there was an announcement or whatever it was, and a debate. And it showed the room with the press waiting in it, and out the doors open, and then comes Sasso, who was his chief of staff, and Susan Estridge, who was running the campaign, my friend Pat Halley, who worked for helped us with the treasurer's campaign, worked for Scott Harshbarg. All these people walk in, and right away, the spin doctor and the reporters are talking to them right away. This was like in 87, 88. If that was 1977, 78, the reporters that were in the State House would have said, get him out here right now. You leave. I'm going to have him on the front page as a pedophile the next day. Get him out here right now. We're talking to him. We're not talking to you spin doctors. Leave. That's how they were back then in the media. You talk to the guy. No, I don't want to talk to you. You're his aide. You go get him right now and get him out here. Walk away before I write a bad story about you too. And that's what they used to do. And the press held them accountable. Now they talk to the spin doctors. They've been doing that for 30 years. And then now they're doing the spin doctor thing. And they're getting caught.
The scariest thing right now is AI.
Yes.
And how they can take something
Yeah.
and totally
Yep.
change it
Yes.
and make it look like it's legitimate, and it's not. And you don't know. I mean, there should be something like a banner saying
Right.
AI
Right.
generated or something.
But I'm really surprised, though, not surprised, but I look at things on Twitter, and there's some people that I work with in Washington who were NSA guys and NSA women, CIA. They have accounts now. And when they say something, I can tell, it's true. And there'll be 30,000 responses of people going, oh, yeah, I saw that. That's fake. That's AI. So the public's figuring it out.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, And I mean, when you have a thing like this thing, the guy who I follow because I know a friend that knows him and he's not what he appears to be. Did you ever see Cat Turd?
Yeah.
He has, when he puts something out, when CNN puts something out, it goes to 300,000 shares. He puts it out, it's 1.5 million. Even, what's his name, Joe Rogan, he puts something out, what is it, 35, 40 million?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the public. They're picking and they're looking at it and they're making their own judgment, not a reporter yet. That's why I said they're getting wiped out, and the public is figuring this stuff. I saw a piece like Colleen said about AI stuff, and there were so many people all over the United States, the world, and stuff making comments saying like, oh yeah, you could tell, this is how you know it's AI. See the back of the head and how it's connected to, and the hand looks kind of weird. So they're explaining it to each other. So
Yeah.
it's working. The public's not being fooled. The power's coming to the people. Yeah.
AI, this artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
There's an app that's being developed that you're going to put on your phone. It's going to listen to you all day long,
They're doing it now.
and then it will mimic you. If you don't feel like answering the phone, it'll answer the phone
Yeah.
and have a conversation for you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're doing it. It's doing it now, John.
The federal government, the state government, they're too busy pointing their fingers like this. But the federal government has got to get a hold of this and restrict it before it grows to crazy. When this last presidential election where they had President Biden saying things he never said, and Lori Tahan's doing zippity-doo-dah about it, Elizabeth Warren's doing nothing about it, and so is Ed Markey. And
Yeah.
so we got to get after those characters and say, look, restrictions have got to be put on AI now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you, John. It's just the thing is, do you remember when our phones had batteries in them?
Yeah.
They don't have batteries. You could take out.
Yeah.
You can't take out the battery anymore.
Right.
Right? I have a friend that went to Suffolk with me that worked at the NSA. He said there's a reason they created these phones. Because even if you shut them off, they can still hear you.
Yeah.
Now, even last year, I remember I just was finishing something up, and I called my wife, and I said something like, Elizabeth, she said, oh, yeah, I'll pick that up at the store, and then I was talking to one of my friends about it, and I'm looking at my 2 minutes later, on one of the things pops up, the item I was talking about. And it does it all the time. So now that's why you can't take your batteries out of the phone. They've been listening to us since these things been really around. Yeah. This isn't new. This is, and AI is going to make it worse, right?
If you're texting and you're in a room where the TV's on or
Yeah.
something, you got to pay attention because all of a sudden that conversation is on your phone.
Well, yeah,
Instead of-
Well, the other thing is the TV. They know they were taking stuff off your TV from people sitting in the room with the TVs 12 years ago. The NSA and the CIA admitted that. The point is back when I was working for Chester in the 90s, they were building these big warehouses in New Mexico, huge data warehouses. And they say that every single thing you've ever done on a phone, every email you've ever sent with your name, everything is there. Every single,
How do you run? Okay, how do you run?
Prince Spaghetti, that's what they do at the Prince Spaghetti plant now.
Yeah.
And you see all these big telephone poles being put up on Gorham Street, big project. It's to bring that company more power. They need more electricity.
That's interesting.
Say again?
That's interesting. What is that over at Prince Spaghetti?
Data
The Prince
storage?
Spaghetti building
Yeah.
is a cloud.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. Did you?
It's a cloud. When you
Wow.
go down Moore Street, slow down, take a look to your right,
Okay.
and you'll see gates you can't get in, high
There
security.
you go, yeah.
High security, they don't like
Right.
it when I'm flying my drone.
Right.
A car shows up and says, "Hey, what are you doing?"
No kidding.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I mean, even in Drake, we were talking nanotechnology, like it was way, look at down 113. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but Dakota and all them were all nanotech plants 20 years ago.
Well, before we're off, I
Crazy,
want to say,
crazy stuff. That's interesting, John. I didn't know that. Thanks.
I wanted to surprise you. I was going to get Phil Shea in. Unfortunately,
Senator,
he had
yeah.
surgery, a skin cancer, but he had a good result, so
Oh, good,
he's
good.
recovering well.
Well, when
Yeah.
Phil comes, maybe we'll get a tour of it, because Phil was instrumental in bringing that company here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Maybe
who
we
I
get a tour.
When I started down there, Phil was a rep, Bobby Kennedy was a rep, Nick was a Leo Farley, God bless them. They were great. And when they ran against each other, just like Nick and John. John and Nick ran, that was it. Johnny and I became good friends. That's how you did stuff.
Yeah.
I love Johnny Cox. We got closer and closer. Of course, you hired her. She's from Drake. And you didn't tear each other's heads off and spit down each other's throats. Eddie LaLasha took John golfing to try to show him the ropes a little. Nick did this other stuff. What can I do? That's how you did stuff.
Well,
You-
people talked. They didn't
Right, and it
hate
wasn't
each other.
offensive, and the thing was, you weren't there
But-
for a living life. It was just, you were there to
That-
do the
Well,
right thing.
Yeah.
There was civility in politics.
Yes.
Now
Right.
the civility is gone.
But I
Right.
blame the
Civility,
media
yeah.
because they're constantly pitting.
Right,
And they're saying that
Yeah.
they're always stoking that fire.
Yeah.
I know they had,
Well,
it sells
right.
papers or whatever you used to call it, but it's just, you're right. I looked at the town meeting last night. I saw some of the people I know, and town meeting was a big thing. And then you'd all go out and have a drink together.
Right,
You'd
right.
fight on the floor.
Right.
I mean, back
Right.
and forth on different, in one issue you'd be together, and another issue you'd be, but
Right.
you didn't hate each other over an
No,
issue. And
no.
this has all got to stop.
they used to
this.
even pair votes in the Senate. I think they're doing it again, but years ago, you used to pair a vote, which basically canceled your vote out.
And it's because people are self-consumed.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
about them.
You know, I mean, and I know John has talked earlier about the state versus the federal, but I have to say, the state, we still, thank God, majority of us still get along.
Yeah, yeah.
And, the Republicans, I vote with them more often than some of
I
their
know
own
you do.
members,
That's.
but
The
I
media
can't-
would never say that about you.
Well, no, I guess not.
it doesn't matter, you don't need the media
But
anymore.
the reality
need
is
the
in
walls on.
Washington, I mean, I could never take what's going on.
Yeah,
in
that's
Washington.
inexcusable.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that whatsoever. And I mean, even Chuck Schumer, I knew Schumer, I didn't know him well, but he was the rep from New York, and Tony Weiner, who worked in our office, the congressman that was
Yeah.
married to Uma, he worked in our office in Washington, in Chester. So I knew Tony, but he went and, we traded him to Schumer, and that's how he ended up being Congress, and Schumer went. I mean, Schumer's not a stupid guy, but he gets up there the other day and said, now Trump is gone, he's down to 40 points. Well, they know the polls were the same ones they were using before. And then the reporter says something, but Chuck, you're at 17%. This isn't about me. Well, yeah, it is. So stop this stuff. How about working on some of the issues together like we should have been doing
Yes.
all along?
Yes, let's
I
work
mean, there's
together.
nothing wrong with Joe Biden, but when I was down there, he had a brain aneurysm. Then he had a second one. I mean,
Yeah.
Marty Walsh came back. I'm not putting words in Marty Walsh's, but if you get picked by a president of the United States, even if it's something committee, the Secretary of Labor, which isn't a big, it's an honor, but it's not like, Secretary of State or something. You're going for the experience of sitting in the White House and sitting in that meeting once a month or once a week with the president. They stopped having cabinet meetings like 2 months in.
I know.
The only ones that were going were 4 cabinet members. A couple friends of ours that worked in the White House, I can name the names. He hadn't seen the president in like a year and a half. I mean, why would you stay? They stopped having cabinet meetings. There were 5 people running the show. The Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Treasurer, I think there was, I'm trying to remember who else was, and then Mrs., what's his name, and...
Jill.
Yeah, Jill
Well,
and
I
a
have to
couple other
say,
people.
at least,
We're running
they
low on
were
time.
appointed rather than someone he just picked to,
Comment
eliminate
from the
government.
audience.
Well, you mean like Elon Musk? I mean,
Greg, I gotta
he
grab.
got appointed.
I gotta
He
grab
got
the mic
appointed.
for a second here, okay?
Oh.
Great show today. Thanks to the guests for coming in. Great to
Thank
see
you.
Rep.
Yeah.
Gary is doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, City Life, Vivian Merrill's coming, Sam Chase, Bobby Hoey, and Evelyn Thorin. Linda, you got quite the gang.
Yeah, he
You're
got
gonna need
appointed
a
for 3
bus
months.
next week.
Aha. There he is, Senator Shea.
Confirmed.
You got Phil Shea, Rita Mercia, Corey Belanger, and
lot of
Colin
them didn't get
Loisel next
confirmed.
week. So busy week for Linda next week. Time is short,
We found a
kids.
lot of stuff.
Well, thank you for getting up. Thank
Yeah,
you
my
for the-
pleasure. Thanks for having
It's
us.
been a good
Good to see her.
discussion.
It's the
I know.
first time I've seen her in a while. She lives down the
know.
street from me.
I know. I just.
She's
and
all over the place.
and
I didn't even retire. I don't get to see
Often
her.
I'll tell the guests who they're on with. I didn't tell either of you who you
No?
were on with,
Yeah.
I
so.
thought I was gonna be with Colin, but he must be tired from the
Well,
television.
he said, and then he apologized last night. He said, "Oh my God, I thought the meeting would go late." And I said,
Yeah.
you know,
No problem.
no, he was probably all tucked in back at home by 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Good to see you. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah.
oh,
coming
thank
up.
you, yeah, this
Yeah.
weekend.
And grandmother.
Yes,
Wow.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody out
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
yeah, enjoy, and don't forget your mother, by the way.
Yes.
Anything coming up down in Boston in the legislature?
We just finished the budget, so.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Just hearings going on.
Hearings too.
Yeah, Senate will be doing their budget soon.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The other side.
Yeah?
Yeah, you got to do that, yeah, so. I thought it was the whole thing. It's not the whole thing
No.
passed, it was just the House?
Just the House.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, I think you're gonna, I noticed in the pharmacy, now that it's spring, and except for a few days of rain, when the sun's shining, people are much nicer
Oh,
to each
Yeah.
other.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so that-
Absolutely.
Well, I think people in general are just a small percentage. Like I said, the Democratic Party is being run by a very small percentage. And like somebody said, there was a split in the party. Well, there's a split in other things too. But yeah, there is a split in the party, but it's not 50-50. It's like
Yeah.
90-10.
Yeah.
We'd like to have our
And we're seeing
party
them
back.
leave, and it's just
Yeah, maybe 85-15 on the bad side of, the
Yeah.
85 are pushed out.
so,
you know.
it's gonna be interesting to see where they all land at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're gonna
The
say
people
goodbye,
that left
kids.
the party. Thank you for getting
Yeah.
up, thank you for watching,
Yeah.
and have a good weekend.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.